Thank you for tuning in and welcome back to Home Buying Tips. In today's episode, we'll talk about new construction versus pre-owned homes. Specifically, we'll be taking a look at the pros and cons of each. This video is courtesy of one of our community members. Her name is Ebony Simpson. Miss Ebony, thank you so much for suggesting this video content for today. And if you're out there watching right now and you want to see another video, please let me know in the comment section below and I'll go ahead and add it to my list and get ready to make a video for you. My name is Andrew Finney. Please consider me your real estate geek. I am always here to help. If you need help finding a top agent where you live, or if you simply want to drop me a line to say hello, my contact info is below. If you haven't already done so, please go ahead and subscribe to this channel now and like this video. Thank you. Before we get into these wonderful tips that we're going to go over, again, courtesy of Ebony Simpson, that's why we're making this video today, please make sure that you watch the entire video for the full impact and to get the full knowledge to help you best decide if a new construction or a pre-owned home is best for you. Thanks. So let's go ahead and lead in with 6 advantages of buying an older home. And we're going to go over 6 advantages of buying an older home. Then we'll look at 6 drawbacks of an older home. Then we'll take a look at 7 advantages of a new home and 7 disadvantages of a new home. That way you can be better prepared to make it the best decision for you and your family when it comes time to buying your next place to call home. So let's lead in with those 6 advantages of buying an older home. 6 advantages, number 1 is we're going to be taking a look at old world construction. Now, it should come as no shock, depending on where you live around the country, that you're going to have some of that old world charm in some of these homes. Some of that old world charm is actually something that people look for. Some of it's more desirable. It's going to be closer to the downtown centers. It's going to be closer in location. It's going to be closer to a lot of the things that you might like, and it's not going to look so cookie cutter. It's not going to look like a tract home. And that architectural style can actually appeal to a lot of home buyers. The second thing that you normally get on an older home is a larger yard. So you might be wondering, hey Andrew, why is that? Why do you get a larger yard on an older home? It's because land wasn't at the premium that it was back in the day as it is now. So they built larger lots and built larger homes with larger yards because that was the expectation. Everybody needed to have an acre, 2 acres, 3 acres. Different areas around the country have different acreage on these homes, as opposed to some of these ones and you walk outside and you can like just stick out your hand and you're touching your back fence already. So older homes have a larger yard. Number 3 is longer term neighbors. Now this is really interesting. Longer term neighbors, you're probably wondering, well, why should I care about that? Because if you're going into an older community and you have longer term neighbors, you already know people that are established in the community. You're going to have an idea of how they maintain those homes, whether it's going to be in keeping with what you're looking for in your new community by taking a drive around the community itself. An older neighborhood will be in the condition that it's normally going to be in every day of the week, whereas a new home construction may not. You really don't know how people are going to live and how they're going to maintain their homes. It's brand new. So tip number 3, or advantage number 3 of an older home, longer term neighbors. Number 4, an established neighborhood. Kind of ties in a little bit with the longer term neighbor theory here. In an established neighborhood, you're going to have mature vegetation. You're also going to be having people that know the area, that love the area, and you're going to have an established neighborhood so that you can drive around that area, and specifically if it has an HOA, get a very good indication of how that HOA operates based upon how those homes are maintained. Now, driving into that location, if those homes are maintained in a way that you like, guess what? Older home might be right for you. So going into number 5 is actually mature trees and vegetation. Sometimes we don't think about this when we're getting ready to buy a home. That vegetation is going to take different time and different effort to grow. If you have older trees, you're already going to have shade. If you get a new home and you got to plant a new tree, it's going to take a while to get that shade. And so there's going to be a lot of different trade-offs there with the hedges and everything else that people should consider based upon how they actually live in a home and enjoy it. Advantage number 6 is closer to downtown entertainment, restaurant, shopping, maybe even your job. So older homes are typically going to be more in the inner city, where you got newer homes being normally built on pockets throughout the city, but normally on the outer fringes of the city. That's where the available land is. So if you're looking for dropping the commute time, you're looking for being closer to conveniences for you, then you might want to consider buying a pre-owned home. So let's go into the drawbacks. Now, the drawbacks, number 1 of a pre-owned home is obviously going to be the first thing, more maintenance. It's going to require more maintenance. So depending on how well the previous homeowners had maintained that property, now it becomes your responsibility to maintain that property, and you're going to have to set aside a budget for that. Normally, we like to recommend at least 1% of the sales price of a home. So if you're buying a $500,000 house, every year you should have one specific account for your home maintenance that would have $5,000 a year being added to it for your home maintenance. Now, that's going going to be true whether you're buying new home or pre-owned homes. It's just a lot more important if it's a pre-owned home versus new. So the second thing that we look at here is it can be very expensive to replace wiring and plumbing should you need to. Some of these homes around the country might date back to the late 1700s, 1800s. Obviously, there's been a lot of changes in technology since then in terms of insulation, quality of product. Electrical wasn't even back around back then. So, you have a lot of different things that you need to consider. If you got to replace all your electrical, it's going to be expensive. If you have to replace all your plumbing, it's going to be expensive. So you want to consider that. So know the age of the home and make sure you get a very good home inspection, even though they can't always see behind the walls. Obviously, they're not Superman. So be ready for that. It could happen. So number 3 is smaller closets, storage spaces, and garage. So you're thinking, well, why would an older home, if it has a bigger yard, it has a bigger everything, why would I have a smaller closet? Well, closets weren't quite the thing to do depending on the age of the home back then. So people were like, oh, we just need a good bedroom, and most of our time is going to be spent with the family in the areas, and the bedroom is just for sleeping, and closets just to put a few extra clothes. So the storage space wasn't as big of a factor. Hey, just think about it. If you rewind the clock 50 years, if you rewind the clock 100 years, 150 years, it kind of really starts making a lot of sense here why you wouldn't have storage space or larger storage spaces and garages, and you have small closets in a pre-owned home. It's simple because people didn't have as much crap. I mean, we all have a lot of crap. I mean, call it what you want, but we have a lot of stuff in our homes that wasn't so important or didn't even exist 50 years ago, 25 years ago, even 15 years ago. There's a lot of stuff that's out now in technology that we just didn't have, cluttering up our homes, and that needs storage. So that's another thing to consider there. Number 4 is it might require upgrades. So when we talk about it might require upgrades, what we're talking about is what happens if it has like butcher block counters, or if it has those white tile counters or something like that. Something that's just like you look at it, you love the house, you love the flow of the house, but when you see certain areas of the home, maybe it needs a bathroom remodel, kitchen remodel, what have you, you're like, ooh, it just makes you cringe. But you're into this house and you're loving this house because of the flow, the charm, the character, and the convenience of where it is in relation to where you work and the kind of lifestyle that you choose to live. So it might require updates. You might need a new HVAC system. Maybe the AC is broken. Maybe the heater is broken. Or maybe it's going to be going out. You might need to replace that. If you want to do that kitchen renovation, then you need the budget for that. That same thing with the bathroom renovation or any other renovations you want to do for it. You want to consider that as well. So number 5 is, believe it or not, a resale home can sometimes be more expensive. Sometimes it's less expensive, and often cases it's not. In often cases it actually might be less expensive than a new home, but it can also be more expensive depending on where it is in the city. The closer you get to the downtown, the closer you get to prominent areas in the city, the more expensive those homes are going to become. So it's one thing to consider. If you have a hankering for a certain area of town, a resale home in that bad boy might cost you an arm and a leg compared to buying a new home construction on the outskirts of the city. So consider that as well. So the sixth tip here, the sixth drawback, is that sometimes they just have smaller square footage on average. Going back to the points of like 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 150 years ago, what have you, a house was just simply a place for shelter and to sleep in. It wasn't where, we kind of make it our castle these days, where we prefer to have a home at square footage that's comfortable to us, whether that's 1,200 square foot or whether that's 5,000 square feet or more. We want a home that's comfortable to us and the way that we live our lifestyle and plan out our life. So on average, you're going to see a lot of 1,600 square foot homes, 1,800 square foot homes, or maybe even smaller than that, depending on what area of the country that you live in on average. Whereas the new home construction is going much more towards open concept homes that are much more livable in terms of the space provided. So that's something to think about as well. So now let's lead in with our 7 advantages to buying a newer home. Well, obviously, number 1, little to no maintenance. New home construction is meant to last for, let's say, just a little while. So new homeowners are not likely to install a new roof or replace the water heater, at least not for 10 or 20 years. So that's a good thing about new home construction. The second thing is they're going to have the modern conveniences. They're going to have stuff that are designed and ready for smart home integrations. They're going to have extra outlets because we have televisions, we got all of our smart devices, we got all of our computers and our tablets and all this stuff laying around. So they're going to be ready to go with that, with the modern conveniences and the way that you live right now. Number 3, and a really cool thing here is a builder's warranty. Normally there's a couple of different type of builder warranties that new home builders provide. Number 1 is they will provide, a lot of builders at least, will provide a 1-year home warranty that's kind of like a bumper-to-bumper car insurance on your car. So how does that work in reality with a builder? Well, for 1 year, they'll warrant all kinds of wonderful stuff. They could actually warrant some of the electrical, some of the plumbing, some of that kind of stuff like that. Certain things will be warrantable so long as you didn't get in there and pick apart the wiring in the wall and you chew it out or something. They're going to be happy to come in and fix it out. The second thing that most, or at least with all the new home construction I've ever worked with, will give a 10-year home warranty that normally covers the structure. So structural defects, if there's something happens to the structure, you make a claim and you let them know. They'll give you a nice little website to log into, and they'll cover that with you at closing in a new home orientation, where you go to submit your work repair request. You'll have a 10-year builder warranty. So that's pretty cool to have as well. Now, you need to know the terms of each warranty and what they cover from the 1 year to the 10 year, and you want to work with your own buyer agent when you buy new home construction to make sure that you're having your best interests represented. So I've done other videos about that. In fact, a video that I made last week that Ebony commented on, we were talking about that. So let's look into advantage number 4, energy efficiency. Now, you might be wondering, well, why are the homes more energy efficient that are built today than yesterday? It's a great question. It's simple. Think about it. As technology progresses, we're obviously progressing at light speed in many areas of technology, from the internet to software to hardware to everything. So does the rest of the world and rest of the industries progress in terms of quality of product. Energy efficiency is massive. Better insulation, radiant barrier roofs, more energy efficient heating, more efficient windows and cooling. All of this stuff will save you a huge amount of money when it comes time to pay your utility bills. So new home constructions are always going to be the most energy efficient compared to the older resale homes. Number 5 is the emotional factor of newness. When's the last time you bought a new car or even bought a new pair of clothes and you open up that box or you open up that door into that car and it has that smell? You're like, wow, I just love this. It's awesome. A new home is going to give you that same thing. So let's face it, it's nothing like owning a new home compared to a resale home. So there's a lot of different things there that's pretty interesting. It's just an emotional factor of the brand new home and you're the first one to live there. And going into advantage number 6, again, if that new home construction, and I want to emphasize the word if that new home construction is on the outskirt of your city or your area, then it's likely to be less expensive than comparable resale homes on the inner city or some of the areas around the city that are more prominent where you live. So it's one thing to consider. New home construction does cost a pretty penny and it is pretty expensive, but it can be less expensive if you're buying on the outskirts of town. Just make sure that when you're doing that, you weigh your total life work balance quality with your home, and you factor in for your commute time and factor in for the way that you choose to live your lifestyle and the things that are most important to you. And deciding whether you want the home closer to your job, if you can afford that home, or can't afford that home, whatever. Same thing in the outskirts of the city. If you can afford the home, not afford the home, whatever. Factor your fuel costs, factor your time into that, and make sure that it really does make sense at the end of the day. So number 7 is that the new home construction will typically have a larger square footage, a more open floor plan, and they're going to be really interesting in terms of just how it's laid out. You might not have to bust out walls, where in the resale home that you want, you need to make sure you're not taking out a load-bearing wall and have the house essentially collapse on you in time, putting the house in a structural jeopardy there. The new home construction will be more open in a lot of cases to the way that people live now. So it's important to understand that as well. So let's go ahead and get into the disadvantages of new home construction, the things that you should know and weigh all of these things out against. So number 1 is that tract homes have very similar floor plans and they look extremely similar. You're going to cookie cutter neighborhoods. Now, an interesting observation with new home construction is they're providing, even if it's the same model, they're providing like 3 to 5 different elevations. And an elevation, whenever we're talking about this in new home construction, isn't how high it sits up in relation to your neighbor. That's not the kind of elevation we're talking about. The kind of elevation we're talking about is if you have a stucco home, you have a brick home, you have a home with a stone facade, that's an example of 3 different types of elevation. So you could have elevation 1 being all stucco, being the base package. Elevation number 2 being the stone facade package. Elevation number 3 being the brick package, or a combination mix and match of that kind of stuff. Those are elevations with a home. So it's pretty fun stuff there. So number 2, you could have immature vegetation. Obviously, the home just got built, so it's going to take a while for them trees and shrubs and everything to grow. So just factor on that they're going to need a little extra tender love and care depending on where you live in the country. You may need to actually be wrapping them up during the winter and bracing them down for wind in the spring and the summer, and making sure everything's tied down so it doesn't break in the process of it growing stronger. Number 3 is the house is yet to settle. So you're going to have house settling, and sometimes this is an annoyance. I've seen it where people bought a new home construction and they're like, oh my god, I have this crack up there, I don't know how it got there, it was shoddy craftsmanship. Not so much. It's more than likely just settling. Settling is normal to all homes. It settles over time as the ground beneath it firms up and the house just settles. It causes slight cracks and imperfections in the house. Very easy to stay on top of that. So make sure that you do so. Just be aware that it's going to happen. Number 4 is, again, if you're looking for a lesser expensive new home construction, the distance between your work, or at least ways to the main areas of your city, are going to be longer than if you bought a home in and around those areas. So be prepared for that. Number 5 is new home construction come with some really darn pricey options. Most of the families that I've worked with in new home construction here in Las Vegas at least have spent an average of 7 to 15% of the base price of a home. So think how significant that percentage. You hear 7%, 15%, not so bad. Really? Well, tie it on to $400,000 base price for a brand new home. 7% just became, that $400,000 home just became a $428,000 home. At 15%, that $400,000 home just became a $460,000 home in terms of options. So make sure that you keep your options in check. Going back to having great buyer representation, having your own best interests upheld by hiring your own buyer agent before, and I emphasize the word before you go to the new home builder. Then they can actually help you know which options are best to go forward on a new construction versus things that you would probably want to do after the fact. So things that are going to be, just a little pro tip here, things that are going to be cheaper in the new home construction phase are going to be electrical, plumbing options, stuff like that you don't have to cut into the walls. Those are normally always going to be cheaper. So if you see that you walk into the model and you realize, oh my god, half of these overhead lights are actually options, you might want to go ahead and splurge on them if that's really important to you, because if you do that after the fact, it's going to cost you probably twice as much as it would cost you in new home construction. At the same time, if you're looking at cabinets and stuff like that and you want an upgraded cabinet or an upgraded floor, chances are very, very, very good that you could do that after the fact, after you close on the home, and actually get better and higher quality product for less money that's going to be completely custom to what you want, opposed to only what the design studio has available. So number 6 is that you have a longer wait time. Unless you're buying a standing inventory home. A standing inventory or a quick move-in ready home, different builders call them different things, but essentially you got a home that's almost done or is done. Then if the home is done, you're not getting to choose anything. You're just buying it and then moving in 30, 35 days, right? So if it is close to being done, then what that means is there might be a few select products that you could apply into your home. There is a massive trade-off that I have noticed with the homes coming up on being due depending on the builder. I've seen it recently and I just was like, blew my mind. An example of that is the buyers had the opportunity to choose the type of flooring they wanted in the house, and what had happened is, for whatever reason, probably due to time constraints and everything else by the builder, they had actually installed the baseboards before the floor. Now, kind of common sense, kind of goes without saying, when installing a floor, you don't install baseboards first. Because depending on the product, the baseboards will not look right, they'll be gapped, they'll be spaced, and you're going to have some very hideous looking things. And as I suggested to the builder, they really ought to rip those things off and replace them all, because it looks like crap. And on a brand new home, that ain't cool. So it's something to consider there. Longer wait time, normally you're looking at between 5 and 9 months, sometimes up to 12 months for your brand new home to be built from the time you contract, and it's built from dirt to completion. The 7th disadvantage that you want to think about is that you need to hit reality. It still won't be perfect. No home is ever going to be perfect. Kind of goes back to that last point I was just making about baseboards. There's going to be things that aren't perfect with your new home. Even though you've picked everything, if you get really emotionally wrapped up in that house and everything, nobody can provide perfection, whether it's new home or whether it's a home renovation or whether it's an old home. It's hard to do perfect, and perfect is a highly subjective thing. So it just depends on what you're looking for and what your definition of perfect is. Either way around it. Be realistic and have realistic expectations when you're buying new home construction or resale construction. Now it's your turn. Tell me what you're thinking about this video. What points are the most impactful to you from this video? Was it in the advantage category of buying an older home, that having an established neighborhood is extremely significant to knowing what you're moving into? Or perhaps one of the drawbacks to a newer home is being prepared that you may have smaller closets or storage space, whereas an advantage to a new home would be the little to no maintenance, or a disadvantage to the new home being that you're going to still not have perfection at the end of the day. Tell me what you're thinking and which tips were most significant to you, along with any other tips that you might want to share with us in the comment section below. I'm going to put my contact information up right now. If you have any questions about this video, or if you need help finding a top agent where you live, or simply want to drop me a line and say hello, feel free to do so. Love to hear from you. If you haven't already done so and you want to continue seeing these great videos, I'm going to ask you to do 3 things. Number 1, please subscribe to this channel. Number 2, please like this video. Number 3, please share this video around with someone you know is going to be able to help. In between now and next time, I'm wishing you and yours a lifetime full of love, wealth, abundance, and happiness. Thank you for watching today. See you soon.